Hey guys, tonight we explore the quiet wonders of the slow caramelization of sugar on warm apples. Imagine yourself hovering over a cast iron skillet, the surface still cool but ready to cradle thin apple slices like precious gems. You fan a gentle flame beneath, and the first granules of sugar you sprinkle over the fruit crackle softly, as if whispering secrets to the pan. You probably won't resist another batch. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious where you're tuning in from as we dive into this cozy kitchen experiment. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrange half-moon apple wedges in a single layer, their edges just kissing the skillet's rim. Each slice bears a thin coat of translucent sugar crystals, DNA-like patterns glinting under the kitchen light. As the heat tiptoes upward, those crystals begin to dissolve, their rigid lattice surrendering to a momentary syrup. Mainstream science tells us that sugar's melting point sits around 160. But here, it starts its dance closer to 130 centigrades when moisture from the apples mingles with sucrose crystals. Lowering that crisp threshold ever so slightly, chemists still debate whether moisture content or pan material plays a larger role in that initial dissolve. You watch the granules blur into a sweet pool, each molecule trading its rigid cage for fluid motion. As you lean closer, you notice tiny bubbles forming at the sugar-apple interface, each one a miniature hot air balloon of steam, pressing the syrup upward in lazy arcs. You stir gently with a wooden spatula, the blade collecting droplets that cling like morning dew. Fringe lore claims that if you listen closely, you can hear sugar sing as it caramelizes a quirky tidbit that science hasn't verified, yet bakers swear by it. You chuckle softly at the idea of your pan humming sugar, but there's a playful magic in imagining these molecules reveling in their transformation. The pan warms steadily, and the sugar syrup sheets across the apples in silky ribbons. You tilt the skillet, watching that amber river pool on one side, then guide it back, coating each slice in a gleaming cloak. A mainstream science fact floats in caramelization isn't just browning, it's a polymerization of sugar fragments, where sucrose cleaves into glucose and fructose, then recombines into new aromatic compounds that give caramel its signature flavor. Yet home cooks still debate whether stirring constantly prevents burning or actually encourages uneven cooking. Chemists still debate whether agitation or stillness yields a smoother caramel texture. You pause to inhale the aroma, the air alive with golden sweetness. It's not just sugar you smell, early-stage furans, lactones, and maltol waft upward, drifting like a cozy fog around your shoulders. You might joke that these compounds are the universe's way of tucking you in, but there's truth in how scent triggers comfort. Each aromatic molecule binds to your olfactory receptors, sending signals to the limbic system, nudging calm and nostalgia in equal measure. Your spatula scrapes the bottom of the pan, dislodging a few stubborn bits of sugar. They crackle and pop like tiny fireworks, a sensory callback you'll lean on later when the caramel deepens. You swirl the mixture until the apple edges soften, turning from crisp ivory to pale gold. One light joke drifts out. If these apples had a dating profile, their bio would read, sweet, complex, a little nutty. You smile at your own pun, letting it ripple through the gentle narration. As the sugar syrup thickens, it begins to cling, draping each slice in viscous ribbons. You lift one wedge, heft it between the spatula prongs, and watch the glaze drip in slow-motion arcs. It's a tender moment, like watching the first snowflakes of winter fall in slow dance. Yet you remember that beneath this calm surface, a cascade of chemical reactions hums at the molecular level, each bond breaking, each new compound forming, in a symphony of sweetness. There's a fringe tidbit whispered among pastry chefs in medieval kitchens. Cooks believed caramel was the liquid gold of gods, capable of curing melancholy if consumed by candlelight. It might be nothing more than romantic myth, but it adds flavor to the narrative. You include it softly. Some say that a spoonful of warm caramel can sweeten even the sourest mood, no lab coat required. You let the sarcasm drift, balancing science with a playful wink. By now, the skillet's surface shimmers like a molten lake. The apple slices gleam under their sugar skin, edges just beginning to caramel crisp. You know that in moments, the real magic will unfold, that golden brown flash that signals caramelization moving into full swing. But for now, you savor the prelude, the tender phase where sugar transforms without the slightest hint of bitterness. You glance at the clock, an arbitrary reminder that time is passing too quickly when you're entranced. Yet this slow caramel dance isn't about speed. It's about presence. And as you prepare to let the heat rise a touch more, and as this first section gently fades, you carry with you the sensation of warmth, sweetness, and the promise of deeper flavors to come. You hover over the skillet as the sugar crystals soften, their sharp edges giving way to a glossy syrup that spreads like liquid amber. The pan's warmth lulls you into a state of quiet fascination, each crystal dissolving at around 130 degrees Celsius when apple moisture mingles with sucrose. Even though pure sugar melts near 160 degrees Celsius, a subtle twist most home cooks never notice. Chemists still debate whether moisture or pH shifts wield greater influence here. You swirl the spatula, guiding the syrup into gentle spirals that catch the light like miniature galaxies. Tiny bubbles form along the apple-sugar interface, each one a steam-filled orb that pops in a soft punctuation. You poke one with your spatula. It collapses instantly, releasing a gentle hiss. Fringe lore claims that if you time these pops, you can predict the exact moment caramel will reach softball stage, a quaint theory passed among grandmothers, but never verified by modern culinary science. You smirk at the image of your grandmother clutching a stopwatch over a bubbling pot. But there's charm in imagining sugar obeying its own secret clock. Your spatula scrapes ribbons of syrup, lifting them into the air before they fold back into the pan in lazy drips. You half joke. This syrup is like taffy on vacation refusing to leave the pool. Each ribbon reveals the syrup's growing viscosity, a mainstream science fact born from polymer chains forming as sucrose fragments recombine into larger molecules. You note how these polymers thicken the liquid, transforming a simple sugar solution into a precursor to caramel's signature body. A waft of aroma drifts upward, notes of vanilla-like compounds mingle with toasty hints of maltol, creating a fragrance nearly as comforting as a campfire at dusk. Mainstream chemistry tells you these volatile aroma compounds emerge from both caramelization and early Maillard reactions, where amino acids from the apple flesh join sugar fragments to form new flavor molecules. Yet pastry chefs still debate whether adding a pinch of baking soda accelerates these reactions or ruins the mouthfeel chemists still debate whether introducing alkalinity truly enhances flavor or simply alters texture. You lean in, fingertips brushing the skillet's cool rim as you test the temperature gradient, scorch hot at the center, pleasant warmth at the edges. You murmur. It's like the center of a summer bonfire touching a spring breeze. As the sugar syrup deepens to a pale straw hue, you tilt the pan so gravity coaxes the liquid toward one side, pooling a bit thicker there. You watch how the syrup flows differently, depending on thickness, thinner at one end, denser at the other, each telling you how molecular weight affects fluid dynamics. Occasionally, a stubborn sugar grain resists dissolution, clinging stubbornly to the apple's surface. You prod it until it melts, then quip. Even sugar has commitment issues. That joke hangs in the kitchen air, as playful as the faint crackle when sugar bits meet the hot pan. Those crackles are sensory callbacks you'll lean on later. Tiny fireworks reminding you that transformation is always alive beneath the calm surface. A subtle change happens, the syrup's glaze begins to turn faintly opaque, signaling that polymer chains are lengthening. You swirl it again, watching how the ribbon stretches thinner before breaking. A mainstream observation tying viscosity to molecular chain growth. The longer those chains, the richer the chew, and soon you'll feel that chew when the caramel cools on your tongue. But for now, each stretch and break is a visual ASMR delight. You inhale again, catching a hint of tang from the apples as their juices mingle with the sugar. A fringe tidbit suggests medieval cooks believed apple acids sped up caramelization, though modern chefs usually add cream of tartar for that purpose. You shake your head with mock solemnity. Who knew, doctor? Seuss was right when he said, "Oh, the places you'll go acid, apparently, is one of them." The pun drifts away, leaving only the gentle hum of heat and syrup. Your spatula stirs clockwise, then counterclockwise, as if teasing out the perfect swirl pattern. Jokingly, you remark, "I'm just over here doodling in sugar art class." But there's real science in your motion, stirring effects, heat distribution, and syrup thickness. Though cooks still argue whether constant movement or periodic rests yield smoother color progression, chemists still debate whether shear forces during stirring accelerate polymer alignment or cause uneven browning. A small bubble rims to the surface, transforms into a golden fleck, then collapses in an almost rhythmic beat. You imagine the syrup has its own heartbeat, a gentle pulse of transformation. Beneath your spatula, apples soften edges curling slightly as cell walls break down under heat. Mainstream botany teaches that pectin dissolves around 85 degrees Celsius, turning firm apple flesh into tender morsels. Yet here, under sugar's embrace, pectin and sugar form a sticky duet, each enhancing the other's textural contribution. You dip the spatula into the thickening syrup, lift it high, and watch the drop fall in super slow motion. It elongates like caramel jelly before gravity finally wins. The sight reminds you of molten glass, albeit infinitely more delicious. One more light joke: if sugar gets any more dramatic, I'll need popcorn instead of apples. By now, the syrup edges turn a deeper straw color, a precursor to amber. You sense the shift in aroma, mild burnt sugar notes whispering hints of toffee. It's the Maillard reaction creeping in, where sugar fragments and amino acids produce brown pigments and new flavors. Fringe stories claim alchemists once sought to use caramel pigments as potion colorants, believing them capable of healing ailments. You chuckle, if only caramel could cure my Monday blues. As the mixture thickens further, your spatula's path becomes more deliberate, coaxing every droplet into the dance. You pause, feeling a kinship with these molecules. Both you and the sugar are transforming under heat and time. The pan reflects a glowing portrait of change, liquid gold, turning towards something deeper, richer, more complex. The aroma grows warmer, the colors deeper, the promise of caramel unmistakable. Without announcing it, you shift to a slower cadence, letting the sizzling whispers fill the space. No grand statements, just you, the pan, and the gentle science of transformation. Each swirl, each bubble, each aroma waft is a note in a sweet symphony that beckons calm. You're fully present, immersed in the molecular ballet. The next act awaits, where color, flavor, and aroma will crescendo into the signature caramel glow you've been coaxing all along. You feel the skillet's warmth deepen as sugars and apple proteins converge in a molecular embrace. This is the Maillard meeting point, where sweet and savory fuse into something altogether new. You stir gently, watching the syrup darken from pale straw to a honeyed hue that hints at richer flavors ahead. Mainstream science explains that the Maillard reaction kicks in around 140 degrees C, when carbonyl groups of sugars react with amino groups of proteins, forming complex melanoidins, the pigments responsible for that golden brown color and depth of flavor. Yet chefs and scientists still debate whether controlling humidity or precisely regulating temperature is the key to an even Maillard profile. Chemists still debate whether lower heat over longer times trumps high heat bursts for perfect browning. As you swirl the spatula, you spot tiny flecks of browned sugar-protein complexes clinging to the apple edges, like confetti on a festive table. You scrape them up and let them dissolve back into the syrup, marveling at how those specks introduce savory depth alongside the sweetness. A fringe tidbit surfaces. Some pastry lore claims that bartenders in 17th century France used early Maillard compounds to color brandy barrels, believing the darker hue lent spirits more noble character, though there's no documented proof. You smirk at the image of a flamboyant bartender swirling brandy and murmuring, "To caramel's cousin, I raise this toast." You lean in closer and inhale, letting the aromatic symphony envelop you. Notes of toasted bread and roasted nuts swirl with the lingering sweetness of the apples, an intoxicating bouquet that teases your senses. It's astonishing how the same pan that held near-clear syrup just moments ago now delivers deep, resonance-rich aroma compounds, pyrazines, furfuryls, and Strecker aldehydes, each carrying distinct impressions of toastiness, coffee, and even a whisper of cocoa. You joke, "This smells like someone burnt cinnamon toast in a coffee shop next to a boulangerie." Your spatula scoops the mixture, and you observe its texture shifting from fluid syrup to a more elastic, almost creamy coating. You lift a slice by its tip and let the Maillard-infused glaze drip in slow strands, thicker than before, but still supple. Mainstream chemistry tells you that as polymerized melanoidins grow, viscosity increases and mouthfeel transforms from slick syrup to luscious coating. Yet home cooks still debate whether stirring continuously or letting the mixture rest yields better. Maillard development chefs still debate whether agitation disrupts or facilitates pigment formation. Flecks of caramelized apple skin curl at the edges, their irregular shapes reminiscent of autumn leaves drifting in a gentle breeze. You tilt the pan to pool the glaze and then swirl it back over each slice, ensuring every morsel bears that amber sheen. A light joke drifts out. If these apples were auditioning for a fall festival, they'd get a standing ovation. The pun feels natural, weaving warmth into the narration without pulling you out of the moment. A delicate crunch punctuates the quiet, a tiny shard of dehydrated apple skin snapping under your spatula. You pause to listen, letting the crackle serve as an ASMR nod to the contrast between soft fruit and crisp sugar shell. It's a sensory callback you'll lean on later when the caramel fully sets, reminding your audience how texture can surprise in the midst of tranquility. You murmur, "Who knew cooking could be both ASMR and undercover karaoke between stirs?" You notice a faint haze rising from the pan, micro droplets of oil and aroma mingling in the air like a translucent veil. That mist carries tiny amounts of volatile compounds, each molecule racing toward your nose in a scent-fueled memory trip. You recall a fringe story about alchemists who believed that this aromatic vapor held the essence of comfort, bottling it for royal households. Whether true or not, the tale adds a layer of enchantment to this culinary ritual. You wink at the thought I'd pay good coins for a vial of comfort essence number 7. Turning your attention back to the pan, you track the color gradient again, edges now a rich, warm amber, while centers remain a lighter gold. You guide the heat slightly lower to slow the reaction, mindful that pushing too hard risks bitterness. Mainstream science cautions that letting Maillard reactions progress unchecked can yield acrylamide and other off flavors, so precision matters. Yet bakers still debate whether adding a pinch of baking soda to raise pH can speed browning without raising temperature. Chemists still debate whether pH modulation or timed temperature control is the superior method. You stir counterclockwise now, noticing how direction changes create subtle shifts in heat distribution. The syrup clings differently depending on how you move the spatula, a reminder that physics is as much a partner in cooking as chemistry. You joke, "Stirring's like choreography for syrup, one wrong move and the show might flop." The playful analogy softens the technical detail, making science feel accessible and fun. As Maillard products accumulate, the aroma deepens, hints of toasted almond and dark caramel swirl together, conjuring warmth and nostalgia. You let the scent fill the space, inviting your breathing to slow in tandem with the cooking. A mainstream fact drifts in melanoidins: not only color and flavor food, they also possess antioxidant properties, which some studies suggest can offer health benefits. Meanwhile, perfumers debate whether these compounds could find a place in fragrance creation. Chemists still debate how to capture food aromas without the sticky mess. A small bubble buds at the pan's center, swells, then pops, cutting through the aroma haze like a cymbal crash. You pause and smile. That momentary punctuation feels like applause for your careful control of heat and timing. You scrape the pan's bottom to release any stubborn bits, coaxing them into the mixture so nothing is wasted. Those solids dissolve with a satisfying hiss, their edges darkening into toffee-like shards before melting fully. You tilt the pan and watch the glaze flow, reflecting light in molten ribbons. It's mesmerizing, like watching sunlight dance on autumn rain puddles. You whisper, "If I stare any longer, I might forget what day it is." The line floats in the warm air, blending humor with calm reflections. As your spatula moves through the thickening glaze, you sense the stage is set for flavor's apex, the precise moment where sugar's sweetness, apple's acidity, and Maillard's savory magic converge into pure delight. Without breaking rhythm, you slow your stirring, letting each swirl linger. No new headings, no meta-chatter, just you, the pan, and this gentle science unfolding. The aroma embraces you, the colors deepen, and you feel a hush settle in the kitchen. You're ready to let the caramel glow deepen further, but for now, you savor this Maillard meeting point, a molecular moment that bridges sugar's simplicity and flavor's complexity. You lean over the skillet as the syrup shifts from pale straw to a warm golden glow. That exact hue you know signals the threshold between gentle sweetness and richer toffee notes. The pan's surface gleams like molten honey under soft light, and you guide the spatula in wide arcs to ensure every apple slice wears its amber coat. Mainstream science explains that the color change arises from chromophores forming as sugar fragments polymerize the longer the chains. The deeper the hue, yet home cooks still debate whether pan temperature or cooking time has a greater impact on that exact shade. Chemists still debate whether precise thermal control or ingredient ratios govern chromophore development. You tilt the pan so the syrup pools at one edge, then swirl it back, watching how the golden current flows with different viscosities. It's mesmerizing, like watching sunlight refract through rippling water. You crack a light joke, if only I could bottle this glow as a nightlight. The humor drifts away, leaving only the soft hiss of syrup meeting iron. A gentle haze of aroma rises, warm caramel notes layered with hints of buttery richness. You inhale. Those aroma compounds, including maltol and ethyl maltol, send serotonin signals to your brain, triggering comfort. Mainstream chemistry notes that these compounds emerge as sucrose breaks down into smaller fragments, which then undergo Maillard-like reactions to produce complex volatiles. Yet pastry chefs still debate whether adding butter at this stage deepens flavor or dulls brightness. Chefs still debate whether dairy additions during color emergence enhance or obscure caramel's pure notes. You lift a slice, its edges now translucent amber, and let the glaze cascade in slow ribbons back into the pan. Each drop stretches before it breaks, evidence of the syrup's perfect viscosity. You muse. It's like a golden parachute gently landing in slow motion. The playful image underscores how texture and color intertwine. Tiny bubbles pepper the surface, each bursting in a soft pop, sensory callbacks to earlier crackles. You nod, acknowledging the continuity of sound that soothes as much as the sight. Fringe lore suggests that in ancient kitchens, cooks judged caramel readiness by listening for exactly 7 pops in succession, a mystical ritual many dismiss today. You grin at the thought of an old-world chef closing their eyes and counting pops like beads on a prayer necklace. As you stir, you notice the sheen deepening further, edges turning bronze gold. Gravity pulls the thicker syrup down slopes in the pan, creating darker trails that contrast with lighter pools. You coax those trails back over each slice, ensuring uniform color. Mainstream science reminds you that as polymer chains lengthen, light absorption increases at longer wavelengths, producing that amber-brown spectrum. Yet home bakers still debate whether butter or oil as a release agent alters that absorption. Chemists still debate how lipid presence influences chromophore visibility. A faint, wispy steam rises, carrying more intense aroma. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the scent anchor you. You joke, "This kitchen smells like happiness." It's simple. but it feels genuine in the warm, fragrant air. You push the spatula gently under one apple, feeling the softening flesh yield under your touch. That contact releases tiny spurts of moisture, which sizzle into the syrup with delicate puffs. Mainstream botany teaches that apple cell walls break down as pectin dissolves around 85 degrees Celsius, releasing juices that both thin and sweeten the syrup. Yet cooks still debate whether peeling apples entirely or leaving skins on yields better texture. Chefs still debate if skin oils impart beneficial flavor or unwanted bitterness. You swirl the mixture clockwise, then reverse direction, mindful of heat distribution. Each change in motion influences how heat transfers through the syrup, affecting color uniformity. You quip, "I'm basically choreographing a golden waltz." The pun keeps the mood light, weaving playfulness into the technical dance. Looking closely, you spot tiny amber specks, caramelized sugar protein bits that form early toffee-like fragments. You scrape some free and taste one. It crunches, then melts, revealing intense, slightly nutty flavor. Fringe whispers claim these bits were once used as primitive candy in medieval markets, sold as sweeter than sin treats. Though unverifiable, the legend adds a dash of romance to your kitchen ritual. You laugh softly, sinfully sweet indeed. You tilt the pan back, letting the syrup settle into a smooth pool that reflects like liquid glass. The golden color deepens to a rich honey hue, signaling you're nearing the ideal caramelization point. Mainstream science cautions that surpassing 170 degrees risks bitterness as compounds degrade, so you ease the heat just a touch. Yet pastry chefs still debate whether removing the pan from heat earlier or lowering flame intensity yields more controlled color. Chefs still debate optimal methods for halting caramelization. You glance at your reflection in the syrup, framed by glowing apple slices. You offer a light aside. "If I stare any longer, I may become part of the scenery." The joke settles in, reminding you that even in focused observation, a touch of humor keeps things human. A few last bubbles surface, pop, and vanish. You inhale deeply, letting the comforting aroma soothe your mind. The golden hue is now complete, a translucent bronze that promises layers of flavor, sweet, toasty, buttery hints, all intertwined. You guide the spatula one final time to coat every surface evenly. Without fanfare, you let the pan's gentle warmth and rich aroma hold the moment. No extra headings, no reminders of what's next, just the luminous caramel glow that envelops apples in edible radiance. The next stirring phase will bring new textures, but for now, you relish this moment of golden emergence. You step back as wisps of fragrant vapor rise like a gentle cloud above the skillet, each swirl carrying a tapestry of sweet, toasty, and fruity notes into the cool kitchen air. You lean forward, letting that aromatic mist envelop you, an invisible blanket of comfort, drifting slowly around your senses. Mainstream science explains that these volatile aroma compounds vaporize when their vapor pressure exceeds ambient pressure, riding thermal currents upward in tiny droplets. Yet chefs and perfumers still debate whether using a lid momentarily preserves these volatiles or allows too much condensation. Chemists still debate whether trapping aroma aids flavor retention or drowns subtle notes. The cloud moves in slow eddies as you swirl the pan, releasing fresh bursts of maltol, furfural, and ethyl acetate. You inhale deeply, noticing how the maltol strikes first with its caramel candy sweetness, followed by a gentle hint of buttery warmth from diacetyl compounds, and finishing with the crisp, fruity zing of apple esters. You half joke. This cloud smells like heaven in a saucepan. The pun floats away, leaving only the delicate hiss of steam. As the aroma intensifies, you recall that smell plays a crucial role in taste perception. Up to 90% of what we perceive as flavor actually comes from olfaction. That mainstream science fact reminds you how essential inhaling these aromatic clouds is for a full sensory experience. Yet home cooks and flavorists still debate whether direct inhalation or a brief wafting technique yields better flavor. Memory chefs still debate how best to capture aroma for plating or promotional photography. You watch as the fragrant cloud drifts into corners of the kitchen, clinging to fabric and wood like a gentle wave. Fringe lore suggests that ancient cooks believed aroma could ward off bad spirits by invoking comfort and calm. They felt protected from kitchen mishaps. You smirk at the idea of sugar vapor as a mystical guardian, but appreciate the underlying truth. Comforting scents can reduce stress and lower cortisol levels. You murmur, maybe my pan is a secret security system. You dip the spatula into the syrup and stir, sending fresh aroma plumes into the air. Tiny droplets cling to the pan's rim, releasing bursts of scent whenever you disturb them. It's like a series of perfumed fireworks, each pop of a droplet adding a new note to the aromatic composition. Mainstream chemistry tells you that these droplets carry a greater concentration of heavier aroma molecules, resulting in richer scent pockets. Yet scientists still debate whether these microdroplets contribute more to flavor, or if pure vapor does the heavy lifting. Chemists still debate the role of aerosolized versus gaseous aroma in taste. A minute later, you notice the cloud thickening, forming a soft mist that seems almost tangible. You wave your hand through it and exhale softly, watching the eddies swirl your breath into the syrup-scented haze. You joke, if clouds could taste good, this one would win a Michelin star. The light-hearted quip brings warmth to the moment, underlining how humor weaves through scientific observation. As you continue stirring, you catch sight of minute condensation forming on a nearby pan lid you laid aside earlier. Droplets of sweet steam bead like tiny crystals, reflecting light in miniature rainbows. You lifted the lid too long, so those precious aroma droplets condensed and clung there instead of dispersing. Mainstream science notes that condensation can trap aroma, which is why professional kitchens sometimes use cloches to capture scent at plating. Yet home cooks still debate whether covering or uncovering the pan yields the fullest flavor in the final dish. Chefs still debate the merits of open versus closed aroma retention. You tilt the skillet to pool syrup along one side, and the cloud shifts accordingly, following the aroma source like a curious cat. It's mesmerizing to see scent in motion, as if you could paint with perfume. You lean in and whisper, I could spend the rest of the night choreographing these steam dances. The joke underscores your fascination, blending technical insight with playful imagination. A sudden pop from a stray sugar grain hitting the pan's edge breaks the haze for a moment. You smile, recognizing this sensory callback as both a sound and aroma trigger tiny percussion notes punctuating the fragrant cloud. You pause to listen, letting the crackle echo, then inhale again, drawing in the renewed intensity of mixed caramel and apple esters. That interplay of sound and scent feels like a lullaby for your senses. You set the spatula down briefly, cupping your hands around your face as if catching snowflakes. The steam's warmth threads through your fingertips, carrying the aroma into your skin's warmth receptors. You feel a flush of comfort as serotonin pathways spark a mainstream neuroscience note, reminding you scent and touch combine for emotional response. Yet flavor scientists still debate whether tactile warmth enhances aroma perception or distracts from it. Chemists still debate multisensory integration in flavor experiences. You resume stirring, this time at a gentler pace, coaxing the fragrance out in measured pulses. The aromatic cloud follows your lead, ebbing and flowing with each movement. You joke, "I'm basically conducting a sugar scent orchestra." The metaphor feels fitting. Each stir releases a new movement in this fragrant symphony. As the cloud begins to thin, meaning many volatiles have already dispersed, you decide to trap a bit more aroma by lowering the heat slightly. The syrup thickens in response, slowing the release of lighter molecules and favoring the heavier, deeper notes of toffee and burnt sugar. Mainstream chemistry shows that lowering temperature slows evaporation rates, letting heavier volatiles contribute to lingering aroma. Yet chefs still debate the trade-off between aroma intensity and syrup consistency. Chefs still debate whether flavor longevity outweighs texture precision. The cloud drifts upward and eventually dissipates into the ambient air, leaving behind a trace of sweetness that lingers on your skin and in the room. You inhale deeply one last time, savoring the aromatic afterglow like the final chord of a soothing lullaby. You murmur, "That's the smell of pure calm." The words float in the warm silence, carrying you forward into the next phase where texture transitions will take center stage. No grand announcements, no next labels, just the fading aroma whispering of caramel clouds and the promise of more sensory wonders to come. You lean in as the sugar syrup and apple juices continue their dance, and you sense the shift in texture, the supple apple flesh yielding beneath the glaze while edges crisp into delicate caramel shards. Your spatula slides under a slice, and you feel a soft resistance followed by a gentle give, like pressing into fresh clay. Mainstream science tells us that as pectin and cellulose in the cell walls break down around 85 degrees C, the fruit softens, while the high sugar concentration draws water out. Concentrating solids at the edges, chemists still debate whether osmotic pressure or pectinase activity governs the precise, tender, crisp balance. You marinate in that subtle tug between firmness and fragility, coaxing each slice toward perfection. The apple's surface glistens under the syrup's sheen, edges curling slightly as viscosity increases. You tap one corner with your spatula and hear a crisp snap, a tiny percussion that plays like a whisper. You smile and quip. That's the sound of a fruit spa treatment gone right. Each snap is a sensory callback, a gentle reminder that contrasts delight as much as continuity. Fringe lore suggests that medieval orchard keepers believed crisp edges warded off evil spirits, reasoning that sharp sugar shards could shatter bad dreams, an entertaining myth that adds a playful shadow to today's gentle ambiance. You tilt the pan, letting the syrup flow around each apple piece, pooling thicker at the base. The syrup's weight pulls the fruit into slight angles, causing the warmed flesh to exude extra juices. Tiny rivulets of juice meet the caramel and hiss softly, adding to the ASMR tapestry. A mainstream fact floats by: moisture migration through osmotic gradients draws water from the apple toward the supersaturated sugar solution, concentrating flavor at the contact point. Yet home cooks still debate whether salting apples beforehand helps regulate texture or simply dampens sweetness as chefs still debate whether a pre-soak brine improves tactile contrast or muddies the flavor profile. Your spatula curls beneath a slice and lifts it, revealing a sticky undercoat that stretches before releasing. The syrup's elasticity amazes you. It clings, then gives in slow motion. You muse. If sugar were a hug, this would be the bear hug stage. The joke leaves a warm afterglow as you return the slice to its caramel cradle. Beneath the glossy surface, the apple flesh glows soft ivory, translucent in places where sugar has drawn out moisture. You lean closer and inhale the faint tartness melding with sweet, an equilibrium that speaks to the precise interplay of water, sugar, and cell structure. A trickle of steam carries a deeper aroma now, the fruit's own esters mingling more intensely with caramel notes. You wave your hand through the vapor, feeling the warm mist graze your skin. Mainstream science notes that aroma release depends on temperature and matrix diffusion. Softer tissues release volatile esters more readily, enhancing fragrance. Yet flavorists still debate whether cooling slightly before serving traps more aromatics or lets them vanish too soon. Chemists still debate how post-cooking rest times affect aroma retention versus textural integrity. Your spatula scrapes a few caramelized bits from the pan's center. They're crisp and brittle, shattering at the slightest pressure. You taste one, a toasted, nutty burst that snaps, then melts, leaving behind honeyed sweetness. Fringe Ballet claims that these shards were once strung like edible beads for festive necklaces, an amusing image of dancers bedecked in sugar jewelry. You chuckle quietly, savoring the thought of wearing a necklace that melts when you dance. As you stir, you notice how the apple slice's edges darken a shade deeper than before, now bordering on bronze gold. That contrast between center and rim delights both eye and palate's soft heart. Crisp halo, you half joke, these apples are serving you a multi-textural sonnet. The playfulness weaves through your narration, softening technical detail. Mainstream chemistry explains that differential heat exposure produces gradients in sugar concentration and moisture content, yielding varied textures. Yet cooks still debate whether flipping slices mid-cook promotes uniform crispness or risks fracturing delicate edges. Chefs still debate the merits of a single turn versus a constant turn technique. You lift a slice to observe its underside. Syrup pools thicker at the rind, then thins toward the core. You trace that gradient with your finger, careful, still hot, noting how sugar migration has shifted structural integrity. The core remains tender, while the rim boasts crystalline caramel shards. You wink and say, "It's like a cozy sweater with sparkly cuffs." The joke drifts into the warm kitchen air. Your spatula nudges another slice, and the sound of crackle meets your ears again. A soft ASMR note you'll return to later when the caramel cools. That crackle signals concentrated sugar components at the edges, where evaporation peaked. A mainstream science fact reminds you that evaporation rate correlates with surface area. Thinner layers caramelize faster, yielding more brittle textures. Yet home bakers still debate whether reducing sugar content slightly improves chewiness or compromises crispness. Chefs still debate the ideal sugar-to-fruit ratio for maximal contrast. You pause, stirring, to feel the pan's edge, then dip the spatula into syrup to catch a droplet. It hangs momentarily before releasing in a slow strand. You follow that strand with your eyes as it drops back, then glance at the slice it came from. Beneath that strand, The flesh is a softer hue, signaling a more gradual sugar infusion. You think of this as a tactile map of transformation, each slice telling its own structural story through texture and color. A delicate hiss arises as a droplet hits the hot pan surface, sending a tiny burst of steam. It's like a whispered punctuation to the rhythmic stir. You murmur. Even the steam wants in on the performance. That playful note underscores how every element from crackle to hiss to ribbon contributes to a sensory symphony. Fringe historians claim that in royal courts, cooks used scented steam to signal dish readiness, a lavish display of aroma intimacy. You grin at the extravagance. Imagine being served with a steam concierge. Between stirs, you observe the apple flesh carefully. The cells have softened into pillowy flesh, yet the slices hold their shape like delicate petals. Mainstream botany explains that pectin gelation and hemicellulose breakdown define this tender firmness, while sugar's hygroscopic nature locks in moisture. Yet scientists still debate whether adding a dash of lemon juice alters pectin set. More than sugar purity chemists still debate the role of acidity in structural cohesion. You resume stirring at a slower tempo, letting each apple piece bathe longer in the syrup before the next rotation. The texture contrast is now undeniable: inner flesh yielding like velvet, edges cracking like sugar glass. You muse. It's like having a velvet cloak with crystal trim. The joke hangs gently as you continue, enveloped in the kitchen's warmth and the rhythm of sweet transformation. A final crackle cues you to the nearing of the ideal texture phase. You glance at the pan's surface, ripples of amber and ivory, soft and crisp, interwoven. You pause to let the moment settle, feeling a satisfied calm as the apples and sugar converge in tactile harmony. The stage is set for the next flourish. Flavor amplification awaits, where each bite will burst with sweet, tart, and toasty notes. But for now, you linger in this texture transition, savoring every crack, hiss, and ribbon that defines the gentle science of caramelized apple textures. You lean closer as a gentle simmer hums beneath the skillet, and you prepare for the flavor amplification symphony where sweetness, tartness, and toasty notes converge into a crescendo on your palate. You spoon a small taste of the warm caramel apple mixture and let it linger on your tongue. At first, pure sucrose sweetness strikes. Then the apple's natural malic acid tang cuts through. And finally, the toasted melanoidins whisper of toffee and almond. Mainstream science reminds you that taste receptors for sweet T1R2, T1R3, and sour PKD2L1 activate in sequence, creating layered flavor perceptions. While retronasal olfaction brings those toasty aroma compounds to life, chemists still debate whether taste or smell plays the leading role in perceived flavor depth. You stir, sending fresh ribbons of syrup around each slice, ensuring every bite will carry that layered profile. A fringe tidbit suggests that Victorian candy makers once flavored caramel with exotic spices like saffron to amplify complexity, though most historians agree it was more about showmanship than taste science. You chuckle at the image of a London confectioner sprinkling golden threads into molten sugar for aristocratic palates. A soulful crackle from the pan cues another taste test. You lift a slice, let a bead of syrup drip onto your fingertip, and taste it again. This time, the initial sweetness is tempered by subtle bitterness from pyrolysis compounds tiny fragments of sugar that slightly char when temperature edges above 170 degrees Celsius. That bitterness adds balance, preventing cloying overload. Mainstream chemistry acknowledges that controlled bitterness is essential for flavor equilibrium in confections. Yet chefs still debate whether a pinch of salt or a hint of coffee grounds best tempers sweetness. Chefs still debate optimal bitterness modulators. You swirl the spatula, pooling thicker syrup at one side and then coaxing it over each wedge. The apple's natural acids continue to play their part, brightening the profile. You murmur, like a symphony. You need a hint of dissonance to appreciate the harmony. The joke underscores how contrast can elevate sweetness into something memorable rather than merely sugary. Between stirs, you recall that astringency from tannins can add tactile interest. Though apples are low in tannin, apple skins carry trace amounts that migrate into the syrup, especially where skins remain. Mainstream food science notes that these polyphenols bind to salivary proteins, creating a subtle drying sensation that cleanses the palate. Yet flavor experts still debate whether retaining skins or peeling apples yields better textural interplay. Chefs still debate the risks and rewards of polyphenols in dessert applications. You tip the pan so the syrup pools at the base, then collect it with your spatula and drizzle slowly over a slice. The long, slow drizzle accentuates the viscosity, allowing you to observe that each strand clings before releasing in a slow descent. That visual cue signals optimal sugar polymer length for flavor release too short and taste fades too quickly. Too long and chew dominates. Mainstream science links polymer chain length to flavor release kinetics. Chemists still debate the precise molecular weight distribution that yields the most satisfying mouthfeel. You laugh softly, remembering the playful myth about sugar snakes that in medieval fairs, carnival cooks would whip molten caramel into spirals and feed them like serpent figurines to astonished crowds. Pure fringe fun rather than documented practice. Whoa. You smirk at the thought of diners hissing at their desserts, but you appreciate the whimsy it adds to this sensory ritual. You pause to inhale. Now the aroma is deeper, a complex haze of burnt sugar, stewed fruit, and faint vanilla notes from trace vanillin in sugarcane molasses residuals. That aroma bloom enhances flavor through cross-modal interactions, seeing the golden sheen, smelling the rich notes, then tasting sweet and sour in harmony. Mainstream neuroscience highlights that multisensory integration in the orbitofrontal cortex shapes flavor perception, yet cognitive scientists still debate whether visual cues or olfactory stimuli dominate our gustatory experience. Chemists still debate how to quantify cross-modal contribution. A small bubble bursts sharply at the syrup's edge, punctuating the aromatic haze with an audible click. You smile, recognizing this callback join of sound and taste. Applause from the sugar orchestra. You muse. The humor wraps around the technical insight, softening it into a gentle, ASMR-friendly moment. Stirring again. You guide the syrup to coat every nook of each slice, then taste one more morsel. Now you detect a light smoky nuance, tiny furans formed during deeper caramelization stages that impart subtle wood smoke hints. Mainstream chemistry tells you that furans like furfuryl arise from sugar dehydration and Maillard interplay, adding roasted and smoky flavors. Yet flavorists still debate whether these notes are best achieved through direct pan heating or by adding a drop of smoked syrup. Chefs still debate methods for introducing smoke without overpowering. You lift the final slice and let a thread of syrup stretch between slice and pan. It breaks in midair, leaving a delicate sugar filament. You lean in, whisper. That's the little hook that reels you back for another bite. The joke blends sensory observation with aspirational marketing speak, reminding you this symphony isn't just science, but a siren song for your taste buds. A faint pop from the stovetop fan kicks up a breeze, dispersing a fresh wave of aroma. You inhale, savor, then nod in satisfaction. The flavor amplification is complete layers of sweetness, tang, bitterness, and toastiness woven into a single bite. It's a crescendo that lingers long after the morsel disappears. You pause stirring, letting the residual glaze settle into a smooth finish. No grand commentary, just the soft hiss of lingering steam and the sight of amber-coated apples resting in stillness. The next act will explore quirky fringe myths and further debates. But for now, you bask in the afterglow of this flavor symphony. Content that science and playfulness have combined in perfect harmony. You lean in as the caramel's glow deepens, ready to wander down the rabbit hole of fringe myths and legends that swirl around this golden elixir. In the soft hiss of steam, you half expect whispers of ancient secrets, so you lean closer, letting your curiosity guide you into the realm where culinary science meets fanciful storytelling. Mainstream science tells you that caramelization is simply the thermal decomposition of sugars beginning around 160 degrees C. But beyond that, folklore fans, the flames of imagination, chemists still debate whether any of these mythic tales hold a kernel of truth. First, there's the tale of moonlight caramel, a legend claiming that if you caramelize sugar under a full moon's glow, the flavor takes on a mysterious nocturnal depth. You imagine yourself in a moonlit orchard, skillet in hand, ghosts of silver light dancing on the surface as sugar melts. Fringe lore insists that moonlight's unique spectrum interacts with sugar crystals to enrich flavor, though no controlled study has ever detected spectral influence on sucrose molecules. You chuckle softly. If moonbeams could talk, they'd probably ask for a taste test. Next, you recall the story of sugar alchemists in medieval Europe who believed caramel was the liquid philosopher's stone, capable of transmuting base emotions into joy and sorrow, into sweet delight. They purportedly charged admission to their kitchens, offering spoonfuls of warm caramel as elixirs of contentment. While mainstream psychology confirms that sweet tastes can trigger dopamine release in the brain, making us feel happier, no amount of caramel has ever solved a metaphysical crisis. Yet believers insisted that after midnight tastings, court nobles emerged with smiles so broad they seemed reborn. You quip, "I'd pay royal taxes for that kind of mood makeover." Then there's the whispered cinnabar caramel myth, in which cooks added trace amounts of ground exotic spices like saffron, cardamom, or even pulverized gemstones to their caramel to enhance both color and magical properties. Fringe herbalists claimed that these additions could confer vitality or prophetic dreams. You imagine stirring in golden powder that shimmers like stardust, only to remember that true saffron costs more per gram than gold itself. Mainstream spice chemistry does show that compounds like crocin in saffron can add color and subtle bitterness, yet adding gemstones would likely introduce unwanted minerals. Chefs still debate whether antique spice blends add genuine nuance or merely boast marketing flair. Chemists still debate the safety and efficacy of exotic additives in caramel. A lesser-known yarn tells of the caramel phoenix, a myth from ancient Persia. Legend says that a master confectioner once created a caramel so rich and dark that when it hardened, it resembled a phoenix's plumage. Upon breaking, Shards would rise in the pan like wings in a final salute before melting back into syrup. You tilt your pan subtly, watching ribbons of caramel swirl, half expecting them to converge into mythical feathers. Of course, mainstream physics explains that the molten sugar's flow is purely driven by viscosity and heat gradients, yet storytellers swear they've seen shapes appear. You smile and shrug. Seeing is believing, but sugar shapes are notoriously elusive. Moving on, you encounter the mineral caramel fringe hypothesis, which proposes that cooking sugar over a specific type of volcanic rock basalt or lava stone imparts trace minerals that subtly shift caramel's taste. Proponents claim these minerals catalyze new reaction pathways, yielding rare flavor compounds. You picture placing a skillet atop smoldering basalt slabs, the pan's underside glowing ember red. Yet mainstream geochemistry holds that while basalt is mineral-rich, the pan's metal barrier prevents transfer. Chemists still debate whether mineral vapor could permeate cookware under extreme heat. You let out a playful, "If I wanted rock-infused caramel, I'd add crushed cookies." Some enthusiasts speak of celestial caramel crystals, asserting that if you cool caramel under sub-zero conditions like moonlit frost, the sugar forms unique glass-like structures that shimmer like ice. They show photos of translucent sugar shards that catch every glint of starlight. You recall your freezer experiments. Syrup turns rock hard, but you've never seen cosmic sparkle, probably because frost crystals, not sugar, create that shine. Mainstream crystallography clarifies that sugar crystallization is inhibited in high-sugar syrups, leading to amorphous glass rather than faceted structures. Yet home scientists persist in chasing sparkly shards. You smile at the dream. All I got was a broken tooth. Then there's the North African desert caramel anecdote, where desert nomads purportedly cooked sugar over sun-baked stones at dawn, claiming the first rays of daylight lent a warm glow and subtle floral undertones from desert blooms. You imagine carrying a skillet across shifting sands, every dawn-warmed stone amplifying flavor. When you pause to inhale your own caramel cloud, you can almost sense desert winds carrying distant petals. While mainstream atmospheric chemistry shows UV light can degrade certain compounds, there's no evidence it enhances taste. Chefs still debate whether solar cooking adds nuance or simply risks scorching. You murmur, "If only the sun had a flavor wheel." A quirky tale involves Sir Caramelot, a medieval English knight said to have used caramelized sugar to seal and preserve parchment scrolls, claiming the sugar acted as both adhesive and flavor barriers. According to the story, knights would nibble their own message seals in times of hunger. You lift a slice of your caramel apples and consider nibbling the paper tag you might tie to the handle, though you wisely avoid it. Mainstream food science warns against ingesting paper or adhesives, yet the idea of edible epistles has a poetic ring. You joke, "If only my grocery list tasted this good." Finally, there's the sound of caramel myth that caramel syrup, as it lands in cooled dishes, emits harmonic tones unique to each sugar batch. Paced properly, these tones could be played as music. Bakers claim to have recorded musical scales from cooled caramel drips. You close your eyes and listen. Only the soft hiss of steam and occasional crackle emerges. Mainstream acoustics explains those sounds come from steam bubble collapse and sugar crystallization. Stress fractures, meaning that composers still debate whether these noises qualify as music or mere kitchen ambiance. Chemists still debate the reproducibility of sugar's symphony. You pause your stirring to consider how each myth, though unverified, adds layers of enchantment to the caramel experience. They remind you that cooking is as much about storytelling as it is chemistry. You murmur, "Even if none of this is true, I'd eat a legend any day." In that suspended moment, the pan's warmth feels richer, the aroma deeper, and the simple act of caramelizing sugar transforms into a tapestry of wonder. You resume swirling the syrup around the apples, letting the playful myths mingle with genuine science. No grand transitions, no next announcements, just the quiet crackle of sugar and the tapestry of stories melding into one sweet narrative. The final stretch awaits, where debates over caramel doneness will take center stage. But for now, you bask in the glow of fringe lore, letting each whispered legend light your imagination like sugar sparks in the dark. The syrup's sheen deepens further as you edge toward the pivotal moment of caramel doneness, the precise balance between luscious sweetness and that faint hint of bittersweet edge. You tilt the pan, observing how light dances across its surface, bright gold, giving way to rich bronze streaks that signal proteins and sugars recombining at peak flavor. Mainstream science tells you that when sugar syrup reaches 175 to 180 degrees C, Maillard byproducts and caramelization compounds merge optimally, yielding nuanced toffee, malt, and butterscotch notes. Chemists still debate whether it's better to hover at a steady temperature or push the heat in a final burst for depth. You guide your spatula through the syrup, noting its fluidity, not too thin that it slides off fruit too quickly, nor too thick that it drags like taffy. That balance defines doneness. You taste a bead on your fingertip, initial sweetness, followed by a whisper of pleasant bitterness, the hallmark of perfectly timed caramelization. Fringe bakers argue for a test called the golden drop, dropping syrup into chilled water to judge stage by how it forms threads. You imagine dunking a drop into icy liquid and watching it stretch like sugar spider silk. Yet professional confectioners often favor a probe thermometer for precision chefs, still debate whether tactile tests or strict temperature readings yield truer caramel consistency. A slender steam plume curls upward as you stir, carrying richer aroma compounds. You inhale and detect waves of toast, honey, and gentle smoke. Those notes emerge as furans, maltol, and various aldehydes peak in concentration. At doneness, mainstream chemistry confirms their vapor pressures align at these higher temperatures, optimizing aroma release. Yet flavor scientists still debate whether trapping these heavier volatiles under a lid before serving preserves aroma or sacrifices brightness. Chemists still debate the merits of open versus closed aroma systems. You watch tiny caramel fragments form at the pan's edge, crispy, glassy bits that crackle under your spatula. You scrape a few and taste intense toffee flavor with a brittle snap. That snap is another hallmark of ideal doneness, sugar chains long enough to form glassy structures, but not so long they turn bitter. You half joke. It's like the perfect espresso shot of sugar. Those shards remind you how textural contrast complements flavor balance. Between stirs, you reflect on the debate over heat source gas flames direct contact versus electric coils radiant heat. Some cooks swear gas flames offer more responsive control for final doneness, while others claim electric coils distribute heat more evenly. Chemists still debate whether radiant or conductive heating yields more uniform caramelization kinetics. You lean closer, feeling the subtle warmth shifts beneath the pan, as if the heat source itself speaks to you in a gentle hiss. You flick a drop of syrup into chilled water, watching it form a supple thread before collapsing an old-school test that many home bakers adore. You murmur, "Thread stage never lied." That visual cue confirms syrup readiness without tech, connecting you to generations of cooks who trusted their eyes and hands. Mainstream cooking guides still list both thread and softball tests, acknowledging that tactile judgment remains a valued skill. Yet pastry schools increasingly emphasize digital thermometers. Chefs still debate the place of tradition in high-end kitchens. A rhythmic pop-pop from the pan's center draws your attention. Small steam bubble collapses that punctuate the simmer. You smile, recognizing sound as yet another doneness indicator. Pop frequency shifts as viscosity changes. In fringe audio circles, enthusiasts analyze these pops to craft cooking soundtracks. You quip, "Next up, the Caramelist's Symphony in C minor." The joke threads technical detail with playful creativity. As color deepens to a glowing chestnut, you ease the heat, letting residual warmth finish the job. Mainstream food science cautions that carryover cooking heat retained in the pan can push syrup past ideal doneness if you're not careful, leading to bitterness. Yet many home cooks find that a hot pan off the flame yields smoother results. Chefs still debate whether to remove from heat entirely or maintain low flame for final seconds. You stir one last time, pooling syrup around each slice, ensuring every piece embodies that peak caramel depth. You taste again, savoring the perfect interplay of textures, soft apple yielding to a brittle sugar crisp, sweetness balanced by just a kiss of bitterness. It's the sweet spot where science and craft converge. Without announcing the finale, you let the pan's glow and aroma settle into a moment of hushed reverence. Boom. No next section, just the comforting clarity that you've achieved caramel doneness in its most sublime form. The wind down approaches, where pace softens and senses rest in the aftermath of this precise, joyous transformation. You notice the skillet's glow softening as the caramel's peak has passed, and you instinctively lower the heat, letting the sugar apple symphony drift into its gentle denouement. The syrup now pools in glossy amber rivers, each slice of apple bathed in a tender glaze that catches the light like liquid sunset. As you stir slowly, the pace itself feels like a soft exhale, no urgency, only the measured motion of warmth and flavor winding down. Mainstream science reminds you that reducing heat slows reaction rates exponentially, preserving delicate aroma compounds and preventing bitterness. Even as residual Maillard processes continue in the warm pan, chemists still debate the exact kinetics of carryover reactions and how best to halt them without sacrificing depth. Your spatula glides under a slice and lifts it, the glaze clinging in long, languid threads before yielding. You pause, letting that thread hang in suspended animation, savoring its silky texture and muted sheen. You murmur, like a lullaby for your taste buds, feeling the playful sarcasm soften into genuine calm. This moment isn't about peak intensity. It's about savoring the echo of everything you've coaxed, from sugar and apple's sweetness, tart warmth, toasty nuance, and whispered legends, all distilled into one soft finale. A faint hiss of steam hovers above the skillet, but it's quieter now, more like a gentle sigh than a fervent exhale. You watch bubbles form slowly at the edges, then drift away without fanfare. You think of them as the last notes of a nocturne, each pop a tender punctuation before the final rest. Fringe historians imagined these closing pops as kitchen metronomes marking the end of a ritual. And though unverified, the imagery resonates, each sound a moment of closure before peace. Leaning closer, you observe how the apple flesh glows with translucent warmth, edges curled into delicate amber ribbons. The texture now balances between yielding softness and a whisper of crispness, a final testament to the interplay of pectin breakdown and sugar crystallization. Mainstream botany notes that pectin regelation can occur as temperature slowly falls, lending a gentle firmness once the pan cools. Chefs still debate whether resting in the pan versus transferring to a plate yields the ideal textural set. You swirl the skillet in wide, sweeping circles, coaxing any remaining syrup into smooth, even layers. The motion is as much about mindfulness as cooking a tactile meditation, where each stir grounds you in the present. You whisper, breathe in the warmth, breathe out the sweetness, feeling how the aroma lingers at the edges of your breath, a soft cloak against the quiet kitchen air. A subtle aroma bloom rises, light honeyed notes mingling with the faintest trace of smoke, a reminder of how far this journey has taken you. Mainstream chemistry explains that heavier aroma compounds continue to evolve at lower temperatures, releasing sweetness over time, while lighter volatiles evaporate first. Chemists still debate how best to balance immediate aroma release with lingering fragrance in finished dishes. You dip your fingertip into the syrup, tasting a final bead of the glaze. It spreads thinly, shimmering on your tongue before melting into warmth. That taste carries layers of every stage you've witnessed crystalline dissolve, Maillard meeting, color emergence, aroma clouds, texture transitions, flavor symphony, fringe myths, and precise doneness. Each facet lingers, then yields to memory, creating a soft echo of pleasure. You smile and quip, it's like a dream you get to taste. As the pan cools, the syrup's viscosity increases, and you no longer need to stir. Gravity and time do the work. You let the skillet sit undisturbed, its surface a polished amber mirror, reflecting the soft kitchen light. You feel a hush settle over the space, as if the world outside has paused to honor this culinary lullaby. Mainstream physics notes that as materials cool, molecular motion slows and intermolecular forces strengthen, leading to increased viscosity and eventual set. Chefs still debate whether covering the pan or exposing it to air best promotes glazes that set without crystallizing too much. You lean back, hands resting gently on the skillet handle's cool wood. The warmth lingers against your palm, a comforting reminder of the heat that coaxed these flavors into being. You murmur, "This is the calm after the caramel storm." The playful turn of phrase feels fitting, acknowledging the journey's peaks and the peaceful haven you've now created. A single last pop echoes softly, perhaps a lone sugar crystal melting at the very edge. You listen, letting that solitary sound fill the room. It feels like a tiny farewell, a whispered confirmation that the transformation is complete. No further stirs, no more taste tests, just the gentle descent into rest. As you slide the skillet off the heat, you sense the shift in energy from active creation to serene completion. The aroma remains, but it's now a gentle caress rather than a heady rush. You whisper one final light joke, "If only every day could end this sweetly." Oh. The words drift into the warm air, joining the caramel mist in its final dance. In this quiet moment, you're enveloped by the lingering warmth of caramel and soft apple essence, a gentle warmth that feels like an embrace. Your skillet rests before you, its surface glistening with the final traces of syrup, each thread and bubble now settled into serene stillness. The kitchen's ambient glow feels softer, the hum of appliances dimmer, and your breath deepens in tandem with the fading sizzle. You inhale the sweet fragrance one last time, letting it drift through your senses like a comforting blanket. There's no rush to taste or stir. Instead, you simply listen to the residual hiss, the distant echo of a single caramel pop, the quiet calm settling into every corner. Your mind drifts to the science, how molecules danced and bonded, how heat crafted flavor, and how each step unfolded with precision and wonder. Yet even as you honor that science, you let it fade to the background, making space for calm. Close your eyes and feel the warmth radiating from the skillet through your palms, a gentle reminder of transformation and care. Picture the golden hues of the caramel apples shimmering in your mind's eye, the threads of syrup stretching in slow motion, the aroma trailing like a soft lullaby. Allow these images to weave into your thoughts, guiding you toward stillness and rest. As the warmth of the caramel symphony subsides, you realize that this ritual wasn't just about cooking. It was a meditation on change, patience, and the quiet magic found in simple ingredients. Carry this calm forward as you step away from the stove and into the soft embrace of night. May the gentle glow of caramel dreams lead you into restful slumber, where sweetness lingers in memory and peace unfolds with every breath.